Anthropomorphism is defined as the attribution of human characteristics or behaviors to a god, animal, or object. Something I find incredibly fascinating and bizarre is how people humanize dogs and project human emotions onto dogs. I am convinced people do this because of the dog's appearance. With their forward facing eyes, dogs' faces look somewhat human. If dogs had eyes on the sides of their heads, like goats or fish do, I'm convinced humans would not extend the compassion they do towards dogs. Humans relate to dogs because their faces look somewhat human. Dogs don't sweat like humans do, and to regulate their body temperature, they must pant. To do this, they open their mouths. When they open their mouths, their tongues stick out and the corners of their mouths turn upward. When people see dogs doing this with their mouths, they think the dogs are smiling and that they are happy. But this facial expression, if you can even call it that, is no indication of happiness in a dog. A dog cannot pant and frown, for example. It can't pant with an angry or sad expression. When it pants, it always has the same expression on its face. There really is no way for a dog to pant without turning the corners of its mouth upward. Humans interpret this upward turning of the corners of the mouth as a smile, and they think it means the dog is happy. As a result, they respond to the dog as they would respond to a smiling person. When a person smiles at us, it gives us a nice feeling. This is an evolutionary trait nature designed us to have. As social animals, we are programmed to feel a positive emotional reaction in response to a human smile. Dog lovers look at a panting dog and humanize their facial expression. They project human characteristics onto it. They think the dog is looking at them with an adoring, happy smile. And this makes them feel good, the way looking at a human smile makes one feel good. But these people are fooling themselves, because in actuality, the expression on the dog's face, when its tongue is hanging out and the corners of its mouth are drawn upwards, does not convey the same message a human smile conveys. Most of the information you'll find online about dogs smiling is on pro-dog websites or on veterinary websites. I'm hesitant to believe anything I read that's written by those involved in the pet industry or by dog lovers for dog lovers, because these people are biased and all these websites have a vested interest in having you believe dogs are great, so you will buy a dog. The people running these websites are manipulative and dishonest, and they have no qualms about deceiving you or spreading misinformation if it gets you to buy a dog and feed into this massive $70 billion per year industry. I don't even trust so-called scientific studies that involve dogs, because I have seen biased, bogus studies, such as the recent one that claims dogs' fur is cleaner than men's beards. Please see my video on that subject to understand their trickery and deceit. Clearly, these scientists are paid off by the pet industry to publish their misleading, quote, findings. They say wolves smile as a sign of nervousness or submission, and that this trait has been passed down to dogs. According to an article on BarkPost, which I will link you to in the description, it states, quote, to signal that he accepts his subordinate position, a subordinate dog retracts the corner of his lips, which pulls the mouth into that happy face we recognize as a smile, end quote. It also goes on to say that if you see dogs, quote, smiling, with all their teeth bared, that's their warning signal, which means, hey, back off. Finally, it explains how dogs are excellent observers and learn patterns. So when you reward your dog for smiling by giving it treats or belly rubs or even just showing general excitement and happiness, they learn that every time they perform that submissive expression, they get rewarded for it. It says that, quote, over time, your dog's smiles may actually indicate genuine happiness or contentment, as in his mind, he's created the association between smiling and getting rewarded for it, end quote. So basically, purely manipulative behavior. PetMD published a similar article that purportedly looks at the science behind the looks we get from a happy dog. Victoria Skade, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, certified dog trainer and author of the book Bonding with Your Dog, says, quote, dogs use their bodies to express happiness in many ways, but a true human-style smile isn't normally one of them, end quote. She goes on to say that the canine equivalent of a smile is a, quote, bouncy body, a loose tail wag, and a facial expression with soft eyes and a relaxed mouth and ears, end quote. Another dog expert says that smiling is, quote, an adaptive facial expression and behavior with a range of evolutionary functions and benefits. What we view as smiling can serve to mediate conflicts, communicate deference, and facilitate bonding. She says that dogs appear to employ adaptive smiling behaviors as a social skill and expression of emotion. And she adds that though it is fun to think about dogs as smiling deliberately, the reality is that there are very complex evolutionary forces at work. Similar to what was stated in the Bark Post article, she explains how, quote, dogs are masters at human behavior, observation, and manipulation. She says their ancestry and experiences have informed them on how to be effectively charming. So again, just manipulative behavior to get what they want. This smiling is endorsed by humans when they react, laugh, give treats, pet their dogs, or clap. Dogs quickly learn that this is a positive reaction to their behavior and will continue to smile because of it. There is another scientific cause for dogs smiling, the article explains, something called neoteny, or the preservation of juvenile behaviors throughout adulthood. It states, quote, ritualized and emotional greeting behaviors like smiling, licking, jumping, tail wagging, and vocalization are highly adaptive behaviors in dogs, especially among juveniles, and is significantly influenced by genetic domestication. The evolutionary process over time has, in part, brought us to our perception of a dog's facial expression and reaction to something positive as a smile. We then simply ooze oxytocin in the face of a smiling, wagging puppy dog, even if it is just evolutionary forces at work, end quote. So in other words, we have evolved to interpret the domesticated dog's excited juvenile behavior as affection, and its facial expression as a smile. And consequently, we respond with a surge of oxytocin, or the so-called love hormone. The dogs lick us, and licking is one of those juvenile dog behaviors carried over from juvenile wolves. Young wolves lick around the mouth of an adult when it returns from the hunt, and the food comes back up into the adult's mouth. The act of licking around the adult's mouths stimulates the adults to regurgitate food for the young wolves to eat. Domesticated dogs lick around the mouths of their owners for the same reason. They want food. They are trying to get you to vomit so they can eat your vomit. The owners interpret this behavior as kisses, and they believe the dogs are doing it because the dogs love them. This is anthropomorphism at its finest. They think, oh, my dog loves me so much. Look at all the kisses and smiles I'm getting. Imagine if a human greeted you that way, right? That would be nice. We project onto dogs what we wish we could see in ourselves or others. But this is a major distortion. Dogs are not human. We think dogs are showing us love, so much love, unconditional love. What dog lovers fail to realize is that the dog is just begging for food and is using charming behaviors which it learned it will be rewarded for to manipulate you and get what it wants from you, namely food. And this isn't some biased dog-hating spiel here. This is what dog-loving experts are saying. BorderWars.com, which is a website dedicated to border collies, so again, a website for dog lovers, has an article called Dogs Don't Smile, which I will link you to in the description box. It explains how humans are the only species that smiles. It states, quote, ascribing a happy and sure attitude onto animals that are baring their teeth is an ignorant and deluded form of anthropomorphism, end quote. It discusses different sorts of grins we can observe in animals, such as the grimace, which primates display when expressing fear or intending to appease. There's the submissive grin, which I already mentioned, that you see in canines as a display of passive submission. There's what they call the mimic grin and the greeting grin, different types of grins. And then there's the play face, which indicates a dog is at ease and inviting positive interactions without fear. This, they say, is the most appropriate behavior that humans should associate with, quote, smiling in dogs. It also discusses the agonistic pucker, which is the technical term for a snarl, and falls in the dominant, aggressive, and combative type of signals. The article concludes by saying we cannot and should not anthropomorphize dogs' behaviors because we think they look like something we understand more clearly in human behavior. It says, quote, humans are entirely unique in all of the animal kingdom by expressing ease, pleasure, and amusement by raising the corners of our mouth and exposing our teeth, end quote. Now, I take whatever dog-loving experts have to say with a grain of salt, but what I do know is that this is what pit bulls look like minutes after they kill their loving owners or innocent children. Note the huge smile. And I know I said I would avoid using pictures of dogs in my videos, but I thought it was important to show you this big, goofy smile. What a love bug, right? Aw, so adorable. And what's absolutely crazy is that whenever there's a news story or an article about somebody who got killed, mauled, seriously disfigured by a pit bull, there are always comments. People are always posting pictures of their pit bulls. Often the dogs are lying next to babies or whatever, and they have their tongues hanging out with these big goofy grins, and the owners always say the most stupid things, such as, doesn't my dog look sweet? Look at my big sweet baby. Does this dog look vicious to you? And so forth. As if a dog looks vicious and is snarling 24/7. This is absolutely crazy. All dogs look the same. They all have their tongues hanging out, regardless of whether they just went for a run and played outside or if they just killed a person. They look the same. Oy. Anyways, and here we have a dog being dragged behind a car in China. There is a YouTube video of this I will link you to in the description. This dog is being horrifically tortured. It's a bloody, half-dead mess. But look at that relaxed smile. Aw. I rest my case. Whenever I hear dog lovers talk about how dogs smile, I think about this picture. And I wonder if they think all these other animals with the corners of their mouths turned upwards are smiling too. I'm sure you're all familiar with articles that claim dogs love looking into our eyes, and how research shows that when we gaze lovingly into our dog's eyes, its levels of oxytocin, the attachment hormone, go up, and so do ours. They conclude this is evidence our dogs love us. I Hate Dogs on YouTube made a video about this called The Dog Oxytocin Myth, Dogs Do Not Love You. I encourage you to check it out if you haven't already seen it. I'm going to leave the link in the description. He explains how oxytocin is reduced to a misleading label. We've all been told oxytocin is the hormone associated with love, but in reality it is associated with many other things, not all of them pleasant. Besides sex, orgasm, lactating breasts, and contracting wombs, it is also associated with aggression, drug addiction, depression, empathy, learning, and memory. It's involved with promoting responsiveness to social cues. Calling it a hormone of love is great for catchy headlines and marketing slogans, but it's ultimately misleading. So all of these catchy headlines about how dogs love us because they experience a rush of oxytocin is making people click on the articles and buy the books and rush out to buy dogs and buy all the associated products that come with dogs. They're telling dog lovers what they want to hear, but it's misleading and they are deceiving us. Dogs don't love you. They don't bond with you. How can they bond with you when they are totally unaware of who you are as a person? Food is the only bonding factor. I Hate Dogs rightfully calls it stupid, deranged, mutt-lover propaganda, this idea that dogs look into our eyes and feel love. They experience a surge of oxytocin because they are anticipating food. If it were true that dogs feel love when they look at our faces, they would not eat our faces after we die, but they do. When we die alone in our home with them, they do not look at our dead face with love. They realize we are dead, and they see a warm, bloody meal. They dig in and eat our faces. even when they have access to dog food. This is not something you do to someone you love. Dogs only care about food because they are scavengers with a never-ending appetite. Oxytocin levels increase in anticipation of food. Any time a dog shows affection, it is begging for food. It is pathetic how dog lovers confuse these filthy scavengers' obsession for food with love. Absolutely pathetic. He talks about therapy dogs and even family dogs, how they're trained with food to respond to various cues. People think these dogs care about them and are showing them love when they nudge them or place a paw on them. In reality, the dogs are trained to do these things, trained with food to perform these actions. Everything they do for food. That is not love. What is happening in our society right now is truly frightening. What we're dealing with are a bunch of brainwashed dog cult members that are no different from brain-dead zombies, fully indoctrinated, unable to acknowledge reality or recognize the fact they are fully immersed in an evil cult that practices child sacrifice. They are unable to think for themselves and are regurgitating pro-dog propaganda and bogus studies in order to justify the presence of dogs in our society, shunning outsiders who are not in the cult. Dogs are attacking millions of people every year, children being their preferred targets. They are mutilating and disfiguring hundreds of thousands every year. They kill 60,000 people annually with rabies. They're polluting our water with their tons of untreated waste, spreading parasitic, viral, and bacterial disease. They're killing our trees and our grass. They're ruining the health and lives of millions of people with their barking. They are threatening wildlife and driving numerous species to extinction. They're harassing and brutally killing countless farm animals in senseless attacks. And instead of ridding our communities of this scourge and cleaning up our streets, making our society a cleaner, quieter, healthier place, we're being told by our leaders at every turn, through commercials, ads, movies, cartoons, and books, that dogs are the most wonderful thing on earth, that they are deserving of rights, that they are family members, best friends, fur babies, deserving of all the most expensive foods and treats and accessories and health insurance. And why? Why are we told this? Why the bogus studies? Why are we force-fed this narrative? It's because in pushing this narrative down our throats and programming us to view dogs this way, they are making a lot of money. The pet industry is a $70 billion per year industry in the USA alone. People are so dumb, so gullible, they reject common sense in favor of what commercials and ads tell them. They are so lazy, they abandon their own critical thinking skills and let their TVs think for them. Instead of investing in human children, which are the most valuable, precious beings by far, these brain-dead, zombie dog lovers invest in dogs. Children are the ones who will uphold our civilization when we are old and gone. Children are the only hope for humanity. But instead of reveling in children's actual smiles and celebrating their actual love, people harbor and perpetuate a very negative view of children. They hate children. As a society now, we hate children and worship dogs. People are depriving children of the attention and love they need, and instead are looking to dogs for love and smiles where none exist. Why can't people find joy in actual love and actual smiles? Why must they instead look to dogs and distort reality by imagining their facial expression is a smile, imagining the licks are kisses, and that the excited behavior has anything to do with love when it doesn't? Why go through all of this trouble? Why concoct this alternate reality, write and share bogus articles and studies to paint dogs in an unrealistic light, to make them more human and loving than they are, when we have loving humans right under our noses? Humans that genuinely do love us and genuinely do smile. People redirect their time, attention, energy, and resources into dogs, worshipping a wingless vulture, an oversized rat, a truly demonic creature, over their own offspring. Society is decaying. The world is going to hell. Our youth are killing themselves in record numbers. This spike in suicide rates is truly shocking. Did you know that in 2015, suicide was the second leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 24, and the third leading cause of death for those between the ages of 10 and 14? From 1999 to 2010, the suicide rate among Americans aged 35 to 64 increased nearly 30%. Our civilization is crumbling before our eyes. It's falling apart. This is an absolute emergency. The world has gone crazy, and I think it's because of the way we view our children, the way we raise our children. Our children are being neglected and abused and growing up hating themselves because they are not being shown love. They are not being shown love because the love is going elsewhere. It's going to the dogs. As a society, we hate children and worship dogs. We have things completely backwards, and we are paying the price. This sick, twisted, evil dog cult needs to be exposed urgently, and people need to redirect their energy where it belongs if our species is going to stand a chance at survival. If people would give human children half the attention and devotion they give to these stinking, worthless child maulers, the world would not be in the state it's in. Please stay tuned for my next video for more on dog worship, child rearing, and why our society is going down the toilet.